Oh, hello. With Throne of Eldraine fully revealed and just days away from pre-release, I've been poring over this new set of cards, thinking of the modern format, and that means there's only one thing on this Tolarian scholar's mind.
The portal to Dominia is right over there.
That's right. Which cards from Throne of Eldraine have the most modern merit? Well, I've marked 5 magnificent marvels that might just be made for modern. But before I begin, I'd like to start with an honorable mention. Now, this honorable mention is one that almost made the list. It was really close. At first I thought, oh, this is going to go in one of those tier 2 decks that I love, but as I looked into it more, I saw that, wow, this really might be one of the best new cards for Modern from the set. It didn't quite make the cut, but I really want to talk about it with you now, and that card is Drown in the Loch. I mean, come on, it's a modal card for 2. Drown in the Loch is a blue and a black, where you get to choose one at instant speed. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So longtime viewers of this channel probably know which fringe modern deck I'm probably going to want to play around with this in, right? No, not Merfolk, Mill, that's right, the other modern deck that's ever on the cusp of breaking through, but not quite there yet in black and blue. It's Modern Mill. And I figured, hey, I'm going to be dumping tons of cards in my opponent's graveyard, and that's essentially going to enable either mode of this card to do whatever I want it to do. I mean, it doesn't take long for Blue-Black Mill to have an outrageously high number of cards in the opponent's graveyard. And so I thought, wow, this is essentially counter target spell or destroy target creature. What a fantastic way to give Mill some strangling control over our opponent. But then I realized this is modern. Our opponent is most likely running fetch lands. They're probably casting cantrips. This is a spell that gets a huge modern boost from all of those sort of cards that modern runs. Not to mention the fact that I might be running a turn 1 Thoughtseize. And with all of that factored in, this could just as easily be a turn 2 counter spell. Keep in mind, Counter Squall has seen its share of fair modern play, and I think this is an even better card that could actually become a staple in most blue-black X decks, like Grixis Shadow, for example. And so as I started to examine this more seriously in relevance to non-mill decks, I couldn't help but feel this is a really solid card. Drown in the Loch is something that has the potential to create quite the splash. The only downside here is, no, it's probably not very effective against Tron. But hey, what is these days? All right, so what's number 5 on the list of modern Eldraine cards with merit? Well, it's the world champion himself, Javier Dominguez, of course, otherwise known as Fervent Champion. Javier Dominguez is a human knight that costs 1 red mana and has first strike and haste. Whenever Fervent Champion attacks, another target attacking knight you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. That's not the part that interests me. There's all this talk about modern knights, but check out the next line. Equip abilities you activate that target Fervent Champion cost 3 less to activate. Okay, so what costs 3 or less to equip in Modern? Let's start out with a card called Sunforger. It's an equipment that costs 3 and gives equipped creature +4/+0, but you can spend a red and a white to unattach Sunforger and search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana 4 or less and cast that card without paying its mana cost. So this is the sort of combo engine that might really give birth to a legit Boros equipment deck, especially with the recent unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic to search up our Sunforger. Now, I've heard a lot of talk already about trying to use spells like Manamorphose and Grapeshot for a kind of early game Storm combo win, and that's cool, go for it. But me, I'm a straightforward aggro guy, and I think that Champion can do well in a straightforward aggro plan. Never mind Sunforger and Storm combo, just peruse our fine selection of swords. And remember, Fervent Champion has haste. Shut down your opponents and swing for the kill. There's so much potential here, and Champion is going to see modern play for sure. creature. Question: have you ever felt that bringing out a primeval titan in Modern is still too much of a hassle? Well then, can I interest you in a mythical new castle? No, wait, not mythic. It's actually a rare, and it's my number 4 pick for cards of Modern merit from Eldraine. Castle Garen Brig. Castle Garen Brig is a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You can tap it to add green, or spend 2 generic and 2 green, and tap to add 6 green. GGG. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. This card is incredible. 4 mana for 6 Gs only for creatures or to activate abilities of creatures? Yes, please. I know just the Titan who wants this. Mr. Primeval himself, who is all but assured to come out turn 4 now that we have this card in our library. With a little bit of luck, I think you could get him out as early as turn 3. Start out with a turn 1 search for tomorrow, and yeah, it's prime time, baby. So Amulet Titan obviously will be running several copies of these, but I also see heavy creature decks like Mono Green Stompy as being likely homes for this to go into. Creature heavy green is just going to be eyeing this card for its amped up ramp. I'm actually really shocked at the potential power here. For a format as fast as Modern, giving green even more ramp options is just going to be the sort of thing you hate to see drop on the opponent's board, especially since the only real answer for it is Blood Moon? Making mana ahead of the curve is the power of Modern. From those banned for very good reason Delve cards to the probably should be banned Tron lands, anything with that Phyrexian mana symbol, here we go again with Castle Garen Brig. Are you a Modern combo player who has wished for a better tutor to get your win con whirring off to an early finish? Well, wish no more, or rather, wish just once more with the addition of Wishclaw Talisman, a card whose attempt at a downside isn't down enough. Wishclaw Talisman is 1 generic and a black for an artifact that enters the battlefield with 3 wish counters on it. Spend 1 generic and tap it to remove a wish counter, and search your library for a card, any card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An opponent gains control of Wishclaw Talisman. Activate this ability only during your turn. Let's start with a very basic premise. Who cares if your opponent gets control of Wishclaw Talisman if they're dead before their next turn? If you're playing combo correctly, once you go off, it's GG, and this is the sort of card that enables you to go off sooner and more consistently. Wishclaw tutors right to your hand instead of going to the top of your deck like most other tutor options. And among many other options, it fits particularly well into what is already a potent deck in Modern. Just another artifact for Urza, Lord High Artificer, to use for his Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek combo. Even in the event we need to pass turn to our opponents, there's no guarantee their deck can do much with 1 free wish. And if we really want to shut them down, then there's always cards like Karn, the Great Curator, to create a stallmater of artifacts while the turn inevitably passes back to us. Or just put that Goblin Engineer to good use and have him sack the claw after you get your wish, but before it passes to your opponent. Heck, maybe the Goblin Engineer wants to recur another Wishclaw Talisman that's already in the yard. There's some real potential here. You know, I usually say that for these lists, the number 2 and number 1 slots are such powerful cards, such good cards, that they could easily be swapped in position depending on how you interpret them. And while that's true here, I really am excited for my number 1 pick because it isn't really being talked about as fervently as my number 2 pick is. And I think it may just be the most incredible addition to Modern that we've seen in a long while. But before we get to that somewhat silent sleeper, at number 2 is the card you've probably already heard about and are probably screaming about at your computer screen. Quiet, quiet, I'm getting to it. There's no question that this fairy tale set has delivered quite the story for Modern with Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time is 1 generic and a green for an instant. Ah, but did you read the card? Reading the card explains the card. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. How to even start with this one? Well, at first reminiscent of land grant, I actually found myself thinking of the overpowered mental misstep. Do the cantrip of your choice turn 1, or just use this to fix either land or creatures, and wow. Especially with the new mulligan rules, this gives you such incredible value to have it in your hand for turn 1. A free spell that is going to ensure you never see the end of decks like Amulet Titan and yeah, well, Tron, of course. I even think decks like Selesnya Eldrazi, which we did a deck tech on recently, can make potent use of this. While not as great as Ancient Stirrings, this isn't a card that's going to see play as a replacement for Ancient Stirrings, but rather as an augmentation, a way to increase consistency when digging for that land or needed Titan. It'll be run alongside Stirrings, is what I'm saying, although given how much talk there always is about Stirrings needing a ban, then maybe this could lead to a sort of replacement after all, should that ban hammer ever fall in the Stirring direction. All right, my number 1 pick, it's the sleeper you didn't expect, but here it comes to run wild in Modern, the Brazen Borrower. What was my thought process for Brazen Borrower being the number 1 best card for Modern?
So let's say I summon my Grey Ogre.
The next turn, I declare my Black Knight as an attacker.
What a silly outfit. Oh, no, wait. Did I say Brazen Borrower? No. That is not my number 1 pick at all. My number 1 pick is a Merfolk Wizard, the Kingmaker herself, and the perfect bookend to my honorable mention, Emery, Lurker of the Loch. Emery, Lurker of the Loch, is 2 generic and a blue for a legendary Merfolk Wizard. However, this spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. When Emery, Lurker of the Loch, enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Tap, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Hey, is it just me, or is the word artifact coming up in Modern discussions a lot these last several months? So we self-mill 4 and can tap to cast an artifact from our graveyard, keeping in mind that you still pay its cost, of course. But the fact that cards like Mishra's Bauble exist makes this one of the best new cards for Modern. Mishra's Bauble puts itself in the graveyard for free, and there's also new options like Arkham's Astrolabe, and a host of other recursion choices. This isn't a card for my beloved Merfolk Tribal so much as it is yet another toy for, you guessed it, Wurza. Though I hate to think of what Lantern Control could do with this. Thank goodness Zach Elsick is off working for Wizards at the moment and not innovating new versions of Lantern Control. With what is essentially Affinity, this card is really only 1 blue mana and extremely flexible for so much more than just Wurza. Think of what Jeskai Ascendancy can do as early as turn 3, as Ascendancy will let you untap her to recur your Bauble and, well, off you go. Modern just saw the banning of Hogak, but I think this Lady of the Lake is going to take the cake as the biggest Modern mistake this year. So watch your opponents cower in fear, because Artifact Winter will soon be here. Now I know what you may be thinking. Strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a top Modern pick. All right, Majesty, then now I want to hear from you. What are your picks for Throne of Eldraine cards likely to have Modern merit and see play? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, take a moment to watch our incredible Modern Selesnya tech from last week to get some top thoughts on the ever-changing shape of Modern. And this program was made possible thanks to a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. So thank you.